Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're taking a look at some important stuff here today, such as a CME gap here that will open or effectively open today here, roughly about $1,000 off. So we got a decent amount of percent there to be filled, as well as of course some Bitcoin dominance, altcoin dominance, and just some general best practice and things to kind of pay attention to when you're looking at the charts, right? We'll start off with high block capital and kind of jump right in and kind of see what's going on here, because it is important that this weekend we've noticed that there's been an increase in open interest. It's unusual for that to happen. We've also got a lot of Bitcoin transactions that are pending right now too on level 2 data that I was able to take a look at, and I can tell you it's a good sign, right? We also have a lot more bids than asks right now, telling us that long positions might be more viable. While there is potential still for the price to decrease, there's more interest at this current price point than ever before. That's a very awesome sign. So with that being said, again, we got low volume in the weekend. We got to recognize that that is a thing. You want to be careful trading into the weekend, but on the same accord, we're definitely looking pretty good here for a lot of contributing factors. Let's take a quick peek over here at the liquidation data for the last 12 hours. Really not a lot to note except for the fact we have this kind of some closed out positions essentially at 28.5 and of course equal amount at 29.3. So it's kind of a neutral bias here, so to speak, at this point, where a lot of folks are considering taking longs or short positions. What we want to look at, of course, is where these open interest lies, right? Okay, so open interest, generally speaking here, we have the most volume amount accumulation here at about right there at 28,900. Okay, so that's pretty much right where the price is at. But let's see, how many longs versus shorts are there? We've got some late longs here at about 29,000 even. They're a little bit underwater. And of course, when it comes to shorts, they look like they're pretty much right at break even. Okay, so we've seen a lot of interest here in shorts, a little bit more shorts than longs at this point. Okay, now that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go down. It just implies that some folks feel like this could be the top. Okay. Now, to me, when it comes to some of those things we just looked at, volume as well as open interest, the price goes up, open interest goes up. Those are typically two really good signs. That implies that we should see the price continue to follow that as well. Furthermore, if we take a look at Bitcoin dominance, we can see here, and this is important to run with me here. Make sure you watch all the way to the end. There's important stuff here. CME gap. Okay. Now, when it comes to CME gap, this is basically CME futures on Friday that had closed, and take a look. They closed at 29,765. So 29,765 is the highest point right there in which the price had closed. Today, just say in 1 hour roughly, we're going to see that CME futures open with a deficiency at 28,900. That difference there could imply that that gap will inevitably be filled, and we'll see a 2.5 to 2.75% increase. It's not necessarily going to happen today or tomorrow, but it's going to happen in the relative near future. For the most part, any, if not all, CME gaps get filled eventually. You can see a lot of the most recent ones have as well, and it's important to recognize that. So to me, that's an important thing. Oh, what's also important too is taking a look here at our Discord and some of the healthy profits we took as a community. We took a nice healthy, 33% in 4 days for OP, hit all targets there. Bitcoin good 20% in 5 days, as well as Solana 35% in 18 hours. 2 of those were longs, 1 was a short, and I can tell you our community is doing very well. Thanks to a lot of you for jumping in and helping out as community members. So we have a community where we all learn and grow together. We do have weekly giveaways here on our Twitter, so be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And of course, ensure that you're helping us grow that community by retweeting these messages, but ultimately staying on top of some important technical and fundamental data. We also have a lot of fun along the way too. So really cool stuff. Thank you again so much to everyone who's been able to help contribute with that. Greatly appreciate it. All right, so when it comes to Bitcoin dominance, we want to look at this next here, right? Because this is something that's important to recognize. I like to look at the weekly here for this. We can see that we keep hitting this resistance level. And that's pretty standard, right? But once we break through that, we can estimate that Bitcoin will start to take off, okay? And again, you can only test a certain level so many times before it breaks. Keep in mind, Bitcoin dominance is a different chart altogether than a traditional trading chart. But we can see that every time this happens, the price will essentially decrease as a result, or, which we haven't seen this in some time, the price will continue to increase. That's when Bitcoin takes off significantly, which it did back here in 2021, right? This is 2021, this is 22 and 23. So we can estimate that if the price were to break through that level, we'll see Bitcoin essentially season, right? Where a lot of altcoins, I wouldn't say they'll suffer, they'll still do very well, but we'll notice that a lot of altcoins will not take off as quick as they should because Bitcoin dominance is high. Alternatively, what we could see as well as the price get rejected, come down, and then alt season would continue to occur. The thing you want to pay attention to is how well Ethereum does contrary to Bitcoin and how good it does. If it does better than Bitcoin by itself, then that would be a sign of alt season, because it's the first altcoin to typically take off in a run. All right, so again, just some important back-end stuff here. One last thing to touch on as well is just this overall sentiment here. I'd like to kind of touch on this, kind of show you, generally speaking, where we're at, because it's important to recognize that we're kind of in that sweet spot right now. Okay, we got this ascending trend. The price continues to continue higher, right? We got these nice moving averages as well, working concurrent with the price. But generally speaking, you can see this ascending trend where the price continues to hit these higher lows. That to me is important. We're also seeing parallel highs, which implies that we should see an ascending breakout in the relative near future. Okay, so I'm personally a believer here that we're going to see 30,000 plus again very soon. Now we could definitely see 25,000 retested. Don't get me wrong, there's some significant bears out there and they could push the price down. But we're starting to see a lot more open interest, a lot more bids than asks right now, and a lot of folks are really wanting to get in at this current price point before it takes off. Okay, so again, some really cool stuff, but what this just means here is that we're mostly bullish. We break above, just say, the 31 to 32,000 mark. We're fairly neutral if we remain between 29 and 31,000, and of course, ultimately bearish if we close below 28.5. So just be cautious and careful when price closes below that level. We'll have a different conversation at that point. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the analysis here, and we're just going to wrap up some really important stuff here. It won't take too long at all, so stick with me here. So on the daily, I drew out this chart here. I send this consistently daily. I send daily updates through Twitter, so be sure to enable notifications and follow us there, because I always send out potential playout charts for coins that we're covering and that are most highly requested, right? When it comes to Bitcoin, though, we can see this channel, as I've already kind of identified, higher lows with parallel highs. It's indicative of a significant increase moving forward. It could also imply that the price will come down. We could very well see a double top. Right? There's potential there too. So I wouldn't be surprised if the price comes down to 27,000 for another retest. If it does, I'd love it. I've got a bunch of limit orders set along the way. Okay, I would recommend the same thing for you too. That being said, though, this does tell us that we're more likely to increase than we are to decrease. Okay, so I'll get rid of this just for the sake of seeing what's going on here. And generally speaking, with these Fibonacci retracement levels, we can see 0.618, 29,500 is a strong resistance level. So if I were to take a long right now, I would consider taking profits along the way, and then to effectively just let a little bit ride out if it continues higher from there. Okay, and if you're part of my community, you know what that looks like. Typically, the trade setups I have multiple targets. First one takes the most profit, and the rest kind of just ride it out, because it's really cool to be able to take some profits early, and even if the price continues, you still got some skin in the game, right? Again, different strategies. So here's a really positive sign. When we see the RSI here, we've been up and down below this for a little while, but we're still remaining above it for the last, 5 trading days. So the last 5 trading days, we've been doing pretty good. We're holding that as a support level. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to see that continue to hold. This is what I'm most impressed with, though. Take a look at that money flow index, extremely high. We're holding above 50 with more volume coming in. That is extremely beneficial, and that is impressive considering weekend is part of that overall average, right? Granted, this takes the last 14 days of trading and averages it up, but generally speaking, we're still seeing some good increase there. That being said, we got another potential for MACD convergence, which once again, the second time fizzled out. But again, the more time you try to break through a resistance level, the more likely it is to break. When we see this coming down and the price going up, that's a very, very good sign. So up and down, it's a really, really important thing to recognize. Okay, so that's somewhat of a bullish convergence, at least the way that I look at it. Okay, so again, all good things there. Let's take one last look here at the simple moving average, work our way down. We can see that once again, this ascending trend, we are seeing that 50-day SMA holding strong as a support level. Pushing the price action up higher. Keep in mind, we do have a support down here as well. It's a long ways away from about 22,000 for the 200-day SMA. I'm not worried about that. That's more of a support level for later. Ideally, if we hold the 50, we're going to be in good shape here. If we lose the 50, we'll have to look at some other indicators too. It's not the only thing that we want to focus on, but it's a big deal to be above that level. 4-hour time frame here. Let's take a quick look. Let's go ahead and focus on the RSI and the MACD, because RSI is getting rejected tentatively, and we're seeing the money flow index coming down. That is because we're including this weekend's behavior, because this only lasts 14 candlesticks, not last 14 days, right? So the last 14 4-hour candlesticks is essentially what we're looking at here. So with the MFI coming down and the RSI rejecting off 50, it's a good chance we could see the price come back down to retest the support range here, right there at about 28.6, and then potentially bounce. We could potentially lose the price action too and continue lower, because the MACD hasn't really converged yet, but it does look like it wants to, because it's kind of averaging itself out. And as we continue to dissipate here with that momentum to the downside, we will see that naturally converge. So I'm going to pay close attention to the convergence on the 4-hour. I think that's a really important thing to look at. But for right now, again, the proof is here. We're seeing higher lows. While this low is lower than the previous, it's still overall an ascending trend. So until that ascending trend breaks, we have to assume it's going to continue. That's the concept of how trend lines work. They're 60-70% likely of continuation, so we got to give it the benefit of the doubt and assume it's going to increase. I know assuming is making an ass out of you and me, but hey, sometimes it's better to do that than it is to not, at least in this regard. Again, I don't want you to be an ass. Trust me, I don't want that. But I do want you to be successful, and most signs here are bullish instead of bearish. I would say the 4 hour right now, an ultimate summarization here is that it's more so neutral, right? Bullish on the 1 day. Let's see what the 1 hour tells us here. Okay, so what we want to look at here is a few things. I love to look at the Ichimoku cloud and just double check and verify. We are still below the cloud here. So this little push, this hard push down, we got to respect it. And we got to respect the fact that it could very well continue sideways and down from here to reject off of that level. I would like to see a closure above 29,000 before I get any confirmation we are to take a long. Now, granted, it doesn't mean you can't still take a long position with a small position size and hedge your long with a short on a different altcoin. A lot of folks do that. But generally speaking, keeping it vanilla here, we have a situation where it's not recommending we take a long position, but we are starting to see this conversion line above the baseline. We're starting to travel within the cloud almost, and of course the lagging span is within the price action. So if the price can kind of pump up to 29,000, kind of hold and maintain 29 to 29.1, then that would be a confirmational sign from the Ichimoku cloud. We should take a long. Right now, it's kind of giving us just 1 out of 3 indications that a long might be ideal, and that if you have a short open, you would want to have closed your short by now. Furthermore, very last thing, let's go ahead and summarize with here as well is our CC golden indicator. This is an indicator I created, and essentially it's available on our homepage if you'd like to consider a purchase, but it really gives us confirmational indications of where we're at. Now we're below moving averages here, so I don't love that, right? We're still below, but I do like the fact that we're getting 4 confirmational signs here based on volume, relative strength, and of course moving averages. It's all kind of in there to just build it out so that way you have an easy alert, okay? Now if you take a look back here and how it kind of works, generally speaking, the concept is to buy low and to sell high. Buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high. You kind of get the drift, right? Catch the drift, whatever. It's essentially a cool indicator to kind of make that process easy for you, and you just set alerts based on those notifications. So right now we've got 5 notifications here telling us that a long position might be more appropriate to take. Again, this is a smaller time frame, things can change, but right now we got some confirmation on most time frames, minus the 1 hour Ichimoku cloud, which I would argue right now is right on the edge of potential greatness. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at here for the most part. I would definitely say that we have more potential for upside than downside, but keep in mind, it is a weekend, strange things can happen. I think that CME gap will get filled at the very least before it potentially retests a lower low, okay? I think that makes a lot more sense. Hopefully this was helpful and descriptive to you and it made perfect sense to you. If you want to become a better trader, again, cryptocash.tech is a site. Look forward to work with you. We do have a lot of new members coming over, so thank you so much for all your questions, and hopefully, we can keep on the right track here, right? Because again, Bitcoin does look like it wants to continue higher. Also, be sure to help us, increase and grow our Twitter community. Feel free to, with this Twitter giveaway, this applies to current members as well. If you like, retweet, and follow us, we'll definitely be able to give you an opportunity to be able to be chosen. We choose a new member every week, 4 times a month. All right, check that out in your own time. Thanks again so much for joining me here. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.